Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us.
Yeah.
Today we are going to be exploring empathy
Ooh.
specifically.
I like this one.
Yeah, it's a good one. We're focusing on empathy in the context of counseling.
Yes.
So
Very important.
to really get into this,
Yeah.
we've got a mix of sources today. We've got some excerpts from textbooks. We've got some study guides, and then
Ooh, and personal reflections.
oh yeah, we got some personal reflections in here too.
Got it.
So we're going to really try to unpack this whole concept of empathy.
Awesome.
It's interesting because I had this experience one time where I completely misinterpreted a friend's reaction.
Oh.
And I thought they were excited,
Okay.
but it turns out they were actually anxious.
Wow. Yeah.
And it just really hit me at that moment that,
So easy to do.
yeah, just how crucial it is to understand and communicate empathy.
Yes.
And I think sometimes people think that empathy is just about being nice,
Right.
but it's really about making a genuine connection with someone. And it's about understanding them on a deeper level.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
in our sources, empathy is defined as having two parts.
Okay.
One is understanding the emotional perspective of another person.
Okay. Got it.
And the second part is communicating that understanding.
Yes.
So it's not enough to just recognize someone's emotions.
Right.
You also have to convey to them that you get
You
it.
get to show them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where I think it gets tricky sometimes.
It does.
Because it can be hard to put ourselves in another person's shoes
Absolutely.
and really see things from their perspective, especially when we,
When you have a different perspective.
right, when we have different perspective or a different experience.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's also really important, I think, to distinguish between empathy and sympathy.
Yes, definitely.
So sympathy is, feeling for someone,
Mm-hmm.
but empathy is feeling with them.
With them. Yes.
Is that?
Feeling with them.
Yes. It's like stepping into their shoes and seeing the world from their point of view.
Yes, exactly. That's a great way to put it. You're not just, kind of standing on the sidelines and saying, oh, that's too bad. You're actually getting in there and feeling it with them.
And I think that's where the real connection comes from,
Yes.
when you can actually feel what someone else is feeling.
Absolutely.
And I think also, too, you're not imposing your own feelings or
Yeah.
trying to fix their problems.
It's not about fixing.
You're just there to listen and be present with them.
It's about creating that space for them to just, be and feel their emotions without feeling like they need to, do anything about it.
Yes, and to feel safe.
And to feel safe. Yeah.
To feel safe enough to share those emotions.
Exactly.
Because I think sometimes, we can be afraid to share our emotions.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we don't want to burden other people.
Or we're afraid of being judged.
Yes, or we're afraid of being judged.
Yeah.
Or we're afraid of being told that we shouldn't feel that way. Right. So it's really important to create that safe space.
Yes, it
where
is.
people feel like they can just be themselves and express whatever they're feeling.
Absolutely. And that's the foundation of any good counseling relationship.
Yes.
Is that foundation of trust and safety.
And so I love this analogy. I think it was in one of the study guides that we were looking at, but they talk about empathy as building a bridge of understanding.
Oh, I love that.
So it's not about trying to drag someone over to your side of the river.
Right.
It's about meeting them where they are.
Yes.
And building that bridge so that you can connect.
Yes. And really just understanding their world and their perspective and how they got to where they are.
I think that's such a powerful image.
It is.
Because it really captures the essence of empathy.
It does.
It's about connection.
Yes.
And understanding and meeting people where they are.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really good foundation for us to start with.
Yeah, I agree.
And, as we move forward in this deep dive, I want to talk about some of the benefits of empathy in counseling.
Let's do it.
Because our sources highlight some pretty compelling benefits.
They do.
And one of them that really stood out to me was cathartic release.
Yes.
So can you explain what cathartic release means and why it's important?
Yeah. So think about a time when you've been really overwhelmed with emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you finally had a chance to talk to someone who really listened to you.
Oh, yeah.
And really heard you.
Like you could just let it all out.
Yeah, you could just let it all out. And sometimes just expressing your feelings can be incredibly relieving.
Oh, yeah. It's like a weight has been lifted.
It is. It's like this huge weight has been lifted. And that's what catharsis is. It's like releasing this pent-up energy.
Yeah.
And it can be so powerful.
It is.
Because it's often a first step toward healing.
And it's interesting because I think sometimes we don't even realize how much we're holding in
Exactly.
until we have that opportunity to just let it all go.
Right. We're walking around with all this baggage, and we don't even realize how heavy it is.
And it's weighing us down.
Until we finally have a chance to put it down.
Yeah, it's like finally letting out a breath
Yes.
that you didn't even realize you were holding.
Exactly.
And, another benefit that our sources mention is that
Okay.
empathy can help free up energy for problem solving.
Absolutely.
So how does that work?
Okay, so when we're consumed by these intense emotions, right, it's hard to think clearly. It's like our brain is just completely hijacked by these feelings.
Yeah, you can't think straight.
You can't think straight. You can't focus.
You can't make rational decisions.
No, and so empathy allows you to acknowledge and validate those emotions so that you can start thinking clearly again.
So it's like clearing the mental fog.
Exactly.
So you can focus on finding solutions.
Yes, it's like clearing the mental fog so you can see the path forward.
Yeah, and I love that.
Me too.
Because it really speaks to the power of empathy.
It does.
It's not just about, feeling good or being nice.
Right.
It's about actually helping people to move forward in their lives.
Yes, it's about empowering them to take action.
Yes.
And to make positive changes.
And there's also this really interesting success tip in our materials about the disconnect between reason and emotion.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
And it suggests that sometimes, our feelings can completely hijack our best intentions.
Absolutely.
So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so we might know logically what we should do in a situation,
Right.
but our emotions can pull us in a completely different direction.
Like we know what's best for us,
Yes, exactly.
but we just can't seem to do it.
We can't help it.
Right.
And empathy helps bridge that gap
Right.
by validating those emotions and helping us understand why we're reacting the way we are.
So it's about understanding the root cause
Yes,
of our behavior.
exactly. And it's not about, judging ourselves for feeling those emotions.
Right.
It's about saying, okay, I understand why I'm feeling this way.
And how can I move forward from here? And so it's not about fighting against our emotions.
No.
It's about acknowledging them and then hopefully moving forward in a more constructive way.
Yes. It's about working with our emotions instead of against them.
And I think that's a really important distinction
It is.
because I think sometimes we try to suppress our emotions.
Yes.
Or we try to pretend that they're not there.
Right. We try to push them down.
But they always come back up.
They always do.
And they usually come back up even stronger.
Yes, they do.
So it's much healthier to just acknowledge them
Absolutely.
and deal with them in a healthy way.
Process them, work through them, and then, move on.
And I think empathy can play a really big role in that.
Yes.
Because when someone else empathizes with us,
It gives us permission to feel those emotions.
yes, and it validates our experience.
It does.
And it makes us feel seen and heard.
Absolutely. And that can be incredibly powerful.
It can be.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, we've been talking about empathy
Yes.
and its importance in counseling. But I'm curious, how do we actually express empathy?
Okay.
What does that look like in practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think active listening is a crucial part of expressing empathy.
Okay.
It's more than just hearing words, right?
Yeah.
It's about being fully present and engaged with the speaker.
Okay.
So it involves things like paying attention to their verbal cues, their nonverbal cues, asking clarifying questions, and reflecting back what you're hearing to ensure understanding.
So it's not just nodding your head and saying, uh-huh.
No, not at all.
All right.
Active listening is really about being present in the moment.
So you're fully focused.
Yeah, you're fully focused on the person who's speaking.
You're not distracted by other things.
No, you're not thinking about what you're going to have for dinner.
Right, or your to-do list.
You're not checking your phone.
Right.
You are completely present with that person.
And you're giving them your undivided attention.
Exactly.
And I think that's so rare these days.
It's a gift.
It is a gift.
To be able to give someone your undivided attention. It's a beautiful thing.
And what's interesting is that active listening also involves something that might surprise you.
Oh, what's that?
Silence.
Oh, yes, silence.
And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with silence.
Yeah.
Like, it feels awkward.
I know, but it's so important.
It is.
It's so powerful.
So how can silence be a tool for empathy?
Silence gives the speaker space to process their thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
Right? So if you're constantly talking or filling the space,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have that opportunity to really think about what they're feeling and what they want to say.
Right.
And silence also shows them that you're truly present and listening without judgment.
Okay.
You're not just waiting for your turn to speak.
You're actually listening to what they have to say.
You're absorbing it.
And you're giving them the space to process.
Exactly.
I love that.
Me too.
I never thought of silence as a communication tool.
It's one of the most powerful communication tools we have.
But that makes so much sense.
It does.
And I think it's something that we can all benefit from.
Absolutely.
Practicing more in our lives.
Yes.
But, let's face it.
Okay.
Sometimes empathy can be tricky.
It can.
Our sources actually get real about empathy fails.
Empathy fails. I love it.
Talking about those moments when empathy hits a roadblock.
Yeah, we've all been there.
We all have.
We've all had those moments where we're like, I don't know what to say.
Or we say the wrong thing.
Or we say the wrong thing.
Or we just completely miss the mark.
Exactly.
So what are some common barriers to empathy?
Yes. Okay.
Both on the client side and the counselor side.
Yeah, so on the client side, they might struggle to identify or articulate their feelings.
Right.
They might be afraid of being judged.
Right.
Or they might downplay their emotions.
Because they don't want to burden other people.
Exactly. And then on the counselor side, we can get caught up in our own discomfort with strong emotions.
I've definitely been there.
Me too.
It's hard sometimes to sit with someone else's pain.
It is. And we're human too, right?
Yeah.
And so we have our own emotions that we're dealing with.
And sometimes we try to fix it.
Yes, exactly.
Which isn't our job.
It's not our job.
Our job is just to listen.
Yes.
And be present.
Exactly.
And empathize.
And hold that space for them.
And I think sometimes, too, we struggle to find the right words.
Oh, yeah. The poverty of words.
Yes, the poverty of words.
It's a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Because sometimes language just doesn't feel adequate.
Right. It doesn't feel big enough.
It doesn't.
To capture the complexity of human emotion.
Exactly.
So what are some tips for overcoming that poverty of words and expressing empathy more effectively?
Ooh, good question. One helpful strategy is to expand your emotional vocabulary.
Okay.
There are tons of resources out there like feeling charts, word clouds, even poetry.
Oh, poetry.
Yeah.
That can help you find new and nuanced ways to express emotions.
Exactly.
No, I love that.
And sometimes simply acknowledging the difficulty of finding the right words can be an act of empathy in itself.
Okay.
You might say something like, "This is hard to put into words, but I want you to know that I'm here with you and I'm trying my best to understand."
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging that.
It makes them feel seen.
It does.
Even if you don't have the perfect words,
Exactly.
you're still trying.
You're still there with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also noticed that I sometimes fall into the compulsion to fix trap.
Oh, yeah.
I hear a problem,
Mm-hmm.
and my brain immediately jumps to finding solutions.
Oh, yeah. That's a common one.
Have you experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially for people who are naturally solution-oriented.
Yes.
But rushing to offer solutions can actually hinder empathy.
Okay. How's
Because
that?
it sends the message that we're more focused on fixing the problem than understanding the person experiencing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's almost like we're dismissing their feelings.
Yeah, we're saying, oh, I don't really care about how you feel. I just want to fix this problem.
Right.
Which is not what we want to do.
We want to validate their feelings.
You want to validate their feelings and be there with them in that moment.
So how do we resist that urge to jump in with solutions and instead stay present with the client's feelings?
It takes practice, but one helpful tip is to simply reflect back what you're hearing.
Oh.
For example, you might say, "It sounds like you're feeling really overwhelmed and frustrated right now."
Okay.
This validates their experience without minimizing or dismissing it.
So we're just acknowledging what they're saying.
Exactly.
We're not trying to change it.
Glad-
We're just reflecting it back to them.
Exactly.
So they know that we're hearing them.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's so powerful.
It is, just to feel heard. To feel heard and understood.
Yeah.
It seems like empathy is about creating a space for the other person to feel heard and understood, even if their emotions are messy or difficult to process.
I love that.
Right.
It's not always pretty. Emotions can be messy,
They can be.
but it's about just being there with them through it all.
Exactly. Being present with them in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our sources introduce this idea of different types of empathy,
Ooh, I like that.
which I love.
Okay.
It's like having a specialized toolbox for connection.
Okay.
So can you explain the different types of empathy and how they work in practice?
Sure. So they outline 3 main types:
Okay.
invitational, basic, and inferred.
Okay.
So invitational empathy is all about creating a safe and welcoming space for clients to open up. It's like extending an invitation to explore their emotional landscape.
So how do you use invitational empathy to really encourage someone to open up, especially if they're hesitant to share their feelings?
It's all about using open-ended questions and nonverbal cues that convey warmth and acceptance.
Uh-huh.
You might say something like, "Tell me more about what's been going on," or "I'm here to listen without judgment."
Okay.
And it's just as important to pay attention to your body language.
So it's not just what you say. It's how you say it.
It's how you say it and how you present yourself.
Yeah.
So making eye contact, nodding your head, leaning in slightly to show that you're fully present.
And all those things communicate
Yes.
that you're open and receptive.
That you care.
Yeah.
And that you're there for them.
And that makes them feel safe.
Exactly.
So what about basic empathy?
Basic empathy involves reflecting back the emotions that the client is expressing.
Okay.
It's like holding up a mirror to their feelings, showing them that you're truly listening and understanding.
So you're basically just saying what they're feeling back to them.
Yes, you might say something like, "It sounds like you're feeling really disappointed," or "I can see that you're angry about this."
Oh, okay.
Just really simple reflections.
But powerful.
But powerful because
Yeah.
it shows that you're getting it.
Yeah. You're on the same page.
Yes.
You're with them.
You're with them in that moment.
So basic empathy is for when the emotions are pretty clear and direct.
Yeah.
But what about those situations where the emotions are more subtle or hidden beneath the surface?
That's where inferred empathy comes in.
Ooh.
This type involves reading between the lines,
Okay.
paying attention to nonverbal cues,
Yeah.
and reflecting back the emotions you sense are present, even if they haven't been explicitly stated.
So you're kind of like an emotional detective,
Yes.
piecing together clues
Exactly.
to understand the client's full experience.
Yes, you're looking for those subtle hints,
Yeah.
those little cues that tell you what's really going on beneath the surface.
Like what kind of cues?
So, for example, if a client is avoiding eye contact and speaking in a low voice, you might infer that they're feeling ashamed or embarrassed,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
Or if they're fidgeting and tapping their foot, you might infer that they're feeling anxious or nervous.
Right.
So it's about paying attention to those nonverbal cues and using your intuition to try to understand what the client might be feeling.
And I think that's where the real skill comes in.
Yeah.
Because it's not always easy to read those cues.
It's not.
And it takes a lot of practice and experience.
It does. And sometimes you're going to get it wrong. And
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
It's all part of the learning process.
Yeah. And I think it's important to be humble
Yeah.
and to be willing to admit when we're wrong.
Absolutely.
Because we're not always going to get it right.
No.
And that's okay.
We're human.
Yeah.
We're going to make mistakes.
But the important thing is to learn from our mistakes
Yes. And to keep trying.
and to keep growing.
Exactly.
Our source material has these great visual aids, like word bubbles with different emotions
Oh, I love those.
and examples of how a counselor might respond.
They're so helpful.
They are. It really helped me to understand the nuances of these different types of empathy.
I know. Visuals are so powerful
They are.
because they can really help to bring the concepts to life.
Yeah, it's like you could see it
Yes, exactly.
instead of just hearing about it.
And they can be really helpful for people who are more visual learners.
Oh, definitely.
You know, like I'm a very visual learner,
Yeah, me too.
so I love those kinds of things.
Me too.
Speaking of examples, our sources also provide some sample conversations that illustrate basic and inferred empathy in action.
Yeah, I was looking at those.
Yeah.
I was particularly struck by the example of basic empathy, where the client says, "When I speak, no one even considers my ideas."
Oh.
And the counselor responds with, "You're upset because no one takes you seriously."
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that example?
So while the counselor's intention might be good,
Mhm.
their response actually falls short of true empathy
Okay.
because it comes across as a bit prescriptive and judgmental,
Oh.
almost like they're putting words in the client's mouth.
So it's like they're telling the client how they should feel
Yes, exactly.
instead of letting the client express their own feelings.
Yeah.
So what could the counselor have done differently in that situation?
Instead of jumping to a conclusion about why the client is upset, they could have simply reflected back the emotion being expressed.
So something like,
Something like, "It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated and unheard."
okay.
That validates the client's experience
Mhm.
without making assumptions
Okay.
about the underlying reasons.
Yeah, I like that.
So you're not saying you're upset because of this. You're just saying it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated
Right.
and unheard.
It's more open-ended.
It is.
Yeah.
And it gives the client the space to explore their own feelings.
That's a great example of how even subtle differences in wording can make a big difference in how empathy is perceived.
It's true.
What about the inferred empathy example?
Okay.
The one where the client is avoiding talking about a particular issue.
Yes. That's a great example of how to tune into those subtle signals.
Okay.
So in that scenario, the counselor picks up on the client's nonverbal cues,
Like what kind of cues?
like their shaking head and hesitant speech,
Okay.
and infers that they might be feeling scared
Mhm.
to address the issue.
So they're not saying it directly,
No.
But the counselor is picking up on those subtle cues.
Yes.
And what does the counselor say?
They respond with something like, "It seems like this is a difficult topic to talk about. Is there anything you'd like to share about how you're feeling right now?"
Oh, wow.
Right.
That's so gentle.
And so respectful.
It's about meeting the client where they are
Yeah.
and not pushing them to go any further than they're ready to go.
That's such a sensitive and skillful way to approach a potentially sensitive topic.
It is.
It creates that space
Yes.
for the client to share at their own pace.
Yes.
Without feeling pressured or judged.
And sometimes just acknowledging the difficulty of the situation can be enough.
To build rapport and trust.
Exactly. You're saying, hey, I get it. This is hard,
Yeah.
but I'm here with you.
Yeah. And we can go through this together.
Exactly.
At your own pace.
Yes.
Our sources point out that empathy isn't always sunshine and roses.
Oh, that's true. There's a whole section on client reactions to empathy,
I love that they included that.
which includes potential negative reactions like embarrassment or even anger.
It can happen.
So why do you think that is?
Well, I think empathy is a powerful tool, but it's not a magic bullet.
Right.
And sometimes when we tap into those deeper emotions,
Yeah.
it can trigger unexpected reactions.
I can imagine that being on the receiving end of empathy could feel vulnerable,
Yeah.
especially if you're not used to having your feelings validated or acknowledged.
Absolutely.
And some people might have past experiences where vulnerability has been met with hurt or rejection.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it's understandable
Yeah.
why they might react negatively
Yeah, it makes sense.
to empathy.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate those potentially tricky situations?
Okay.
Like what if a client gets angry when we try to empathize with them?
That's a good question. The key is to stay grounded and avoid taking the reaction personally.
Oh,
Remember, anger is often a secondary emotion, masking something deeper, like hurt, fear, or shame.
so it's not really about us.
Exactly. It's about what's going on for the client. Our job is to create a safe and non-judgmental space
Okay.
where they can explore those underlying feelings.
So we're not trying to fix them
No, we're not trying to fix them.
or tell them that they're wrong for feeling that way
Exactly. We're just trying to understand where they're coming from.
and to help them to process those emotions.
Yes. We might say something like, "I hear that you're feeling angry. Can you tell me more about what's behind that anger?"
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just an invitation to explore those
Yeah.
feelings a little bit deeper.
It sounds like it's all about creating that sense of trust and safety.
Yes.
So the client feels comfortable being vulnerable,
Absolutely.
even when it's tough.
Even when it's really hard,
Yeah.
it's like we're saying, hey, it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. I'm
Yeah.
here to listen and support you no matter what.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Unconditional positive regard.
Exactly. It's that acceptance and that support.
This deep dive has been so insightful.
Oh, good.
It's making me rethink how I approach communication.
Yeah.
Not just in a counseling setting, but in all areas of my life.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how even a basic understanding of empathy can have such a profound impact on our relationships.
It really can.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, let's recap what we've learned.
Okay.
Empathy is about understanding and communicating
Yes.
another person's emotional perspective.
Absolutely.
It's about connection,
Yes.
not just feeling sorry for someone.
It's deeper than that.
It is.
Yeah.
We've also discovered that empathy is essential in counseling.
It is.
It helps to build trust,
Mm-hmm.
allows for cathartic release,
Yes.
and even empowers clients to make more rational decisions.
Absolutely.
And let's not forget those different types of empathy.
Oh, yes.
Invitational,
Basic.
basic, and inferred.
Each with its own unique approach.
I love that toolbox analogy.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's a good one. What I find truly fascinating is how empathy shifts the focus of communication.
Ooh, tell me more.
It's not about fixing or giving advice.
Right.
It's about understanding and connecting on a deeper level.
It's about being with someone.
Yeah.
In their experience.
It's about creating a safe haven
Yes.
for vulnerability.
And authentic
Well,
expression.
and that brings me to a final thought-provoking question
Okay, I'm ready.
for you to ponder.
Okay.
How can you apply the principles of empathy in your own daily interactions, even outside of a counseling setting?
That's a great question.
It makes me think about those everyday conversations with friends, family, colleagues. Am I really listening? Am I making an effort to see things from their perspective,
Yeah,
even when it's different from my own?
Those are powerful questions to reflect on.
They are.
What if we all committed to practicing empathy a little bit more each day?
Imagine the ripple effect
Imagine.
that could have on our relationships and communities.
That's a beautiful thought.
And for those of you who are eager to explore this topic further,
Yes.
be sure to check out the show notes
Yeah.
for links to resources on empathy, active listening, and emotional intelligence.
Awesome.
You'll find book recommendations, articles, even some helpful exercises.
I love it.
Before we go, I'd love for you to take a moment and think about a time
Okay.
when you felt truly understood by someone.
Oh, yes.
How did it make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
What impact did it have on your relationship with that person?
So powerful.
Let that experience serve as a reminder of the power of empathy.
Yes.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting.
And keep those empathetic vibes flowing.
Yes, we'll see you next time.